Hello and welcome to the 3:30 a.m. slot. Oh, this all feels very Alan Partridge to me. This is super. You know what, I can't even find my script. Where is my script for this show? Hi, Clem. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, Rohan.
Oh, I found it. I was padding. I found it.
Great.
So this is great. Yeah, welcome everybody to show 20 of the 24-hour global commute. Over this 24 hours, we will visit every time zone on the planet, and we have some amazing guests lined up. I'm Rohan Sivajoti, the co-founder at NextGen Planners, and my co-host on this show is Cleménce Chatelin. And I will say hello again, Clem, because it's in the script.
Yes, I think this is all working out really well.
This is great, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. I'm very happy to be part of the night shift. I think this is the most interesting shift because that's where the true person comes out after all the tiredness and the whole day behind us, in the middle of the night. So what is this charity event about, Rohan? Tell us about the charities you're supporting.
Of course I will. So along the way, this charity event will raise money for good causes around the world. In the US, we've been fundraising for Quad A, the Association of African American Financial Advisors, and Colour of Change for Black Lives Matter. And the team in the UK have been raising money for two great charities in CF Warriors, helping kids overcome cystic fibrosis, and the Stroke Association. But we would also like to encourage people in other countries to donate to a charity of your choice and then message us to let us know so that we can add your donation to the total and show what the financial planning community can do when it comes together. We will have more about all of that later in the show, but Clem, what do we have coming up on the 3:30 a.m. show?
So we're going to have Hiren, who's going to tell us about some Friday wins stories. We're going to talk about well-being and also as our experiences living in the UK, because we all have a migration background. Yeah, and that's going to be it. So this is just going to be us having a chat.
Oh, cool. This is going to be nice. Well, first of all, Clem, have you managed to have any sleep?
Yes, I did. I think from about 9:30, 10 till about 2 in the morning.
Oh, that's not bad. I just, Hiren, have you managed to have any sleep?
Oh, I managed about an hour and a half between sort of trying from about 11 o'clock, but the shows got better and better, or the guests got better. So I ended up sort of around 1 a.m. catching about an hour and a half. So
I'm purely asking. I'm just trying to rub it in a little bit with Adam Owen because I know that he hasn't had any yet. So it's okay. Look, Hiren, I believe you've got some good news stories from us from around the world. So tell us Hiren's global wins. Come on.
Thank you, Rohan, for that. Well, I'll sort of start my first good story with leading on from the last interview with Andrew Cook around plant-based. So Paris has rolled out farming on the roof. The idea of farming in Paris may sound strange, but the top of a 6-story building in the center of the French capital is set to become the world's largest rooftop farm. The urban oasis under construction in Paris spans 14,000 square meters and will grow more than 30 plant species. It is expected to produce around 1,000 kilograms of fruit and vegetables every day this summer, tended by around 20 gardeners using organic methods. The goal is to make the farm a globally recognized model for sustainable production, says Pascal Hardy of Agripolis, the urban farm company behind the project. Located about the Paris Expo exhibition center in the southwest of the city, the farm will have its own site bar and restaurant for 300 diners using vegetables and fruit grown on site. Just think about all those rooftops in all the various cities we live in that could come to good use. Next, we did, as you know, the conference week is also Glastonbury week. I think it's one of those that didn't manage to get a ticket, but now you'd be pleased to see that plans for UK driving gigs have been announced. So a series of drive-in concerts featuring artists such as Dizzy Rascal, Gary Newman will take place across the UK this summer. The promoters Live Nation have announced that Birmingham, Edinburgh and London are among the cities that will host the outdoor gigs, which will run mid-July until September. This outdoor concert series was created as a way to reimagine the live music experience during a time of social distancing by allowing fans to still enjoy concerts in the safest way possible, as Peter Taylor of Live Nation mentions. To be fair, promoters around the world have been devising ways to keep culture alive in the era of social distancing, including in Prague, where drive-in theatre launched in April. News of UK concerts comes amid sort of dire warnings, and hundreds of music venues could close due to the corona epidemic without the government help. I'm thinking Pimp My Ride goes Glastonbury, so to speak. And actually, those who are interested, Glastonbury being its 50th anniversary of the festival, BBC are actually decided to go ahead with the coverage and broadcast a selection of best performances since the event was televised in 1997. So you could potentially have it in the background as we go through conference this week. Thanks, Rohan. And Clem, back to you.
Nice.
Thanks, Hiren.
Go for it, Clem. Go for it.
Okay, well, I am to say I'm incredibly proud that the French people are farming on their rooftops in Paris. So I think that's a really great idea. And I think, I just wonder how rooftops haven't already been transformed into green spaces. That's just such a waste of space to just have like a concrete slab. And nothing's happening there. I mean, why? You know, I think in the UK, there's so much, talking about living in the UK, housing's very expensive. And so if you have a whole rooftop of space, I think the UK should have been logically the first country to think, I can capitalize on that space. I can make money out of my rooftop because square footage prices is really, really expensive.
Isn't it just? Adam Owen, how are you doing? Are you awake?
Yeah, I am. Thanks, Ro. Yeah, I'm awake. Although I think I may have actually probably reached peak 24-hour global commute, because just looking at the clock now, I'm in hour 22 for me, because I was, of course, up prepping before the show launched at 8:30. Whatever day it was, Monday, yesterday. And so I've been powering through thinking, no, my cognitive processes are entirely as they ought to be, and I'm performing completely normally. And because we had a little downtime in between the last show and this one, I went and made my very first cup of tea of the whole 22 hours, because it's been a bit busy in production. So I've just been drinking bottles of water. And so I was really looking forward to this, 22 hours without a cup of tea. And so I arrived back at my desk here, and I've managed to spill all of my tea straight over me straight away. So I'm now sat here drenched in the aforementioned tea. But what really gave me the inside track on just how impaired my cognitive processes are, it also went on my phone. And I must, as I grabbed my phone to rescue it, I must have actually hit something, and it's moved to another app. It's actually moved to a weather app. And one of the background pictures on this weather app appears to be little tiny droplets of water. And I spent far longer than I really ought to have done trying to work out why I couldn't wipe the water off my phone that had gone from when I'd spilt my tea. And I've been sat here for probably 3 or 4 minutes, just not really being able to compute the concept that it isn't actually tea that's got behind the screen of my phone. So I think probably you should be keeping an eye on me.
Okay. I should also point out at this stage that in a private conversation Adam and I had earlier on, he reminded me of his life insurance provider, so that if his wife does require it at any point, if he were to drop, I know who that is. So there we are. So good to know that you're in a great state there, Adam.
Well, we have passed the danger zone, though, of course, because people who work nights, the danger zone, the most deadly zone if you are working overnight is around about 2:15 in the morning. So I think I was chatting with Clem at the time at 16 minutes past 2, and we celebrated the fact that we'd passed that particular peak. So that was good news. Good stuff. And we're going to have a chat about well-being on this show, aren't we, as well? So that usually involves lots of sleep.
It does, doesn't it? The irony of that, it does. It really does. But yeah, let's start there. And I'd like to start with you there, Clem, if that's okay. In terms of well-being, Clem, what are the sorts of things that you do to look after yourself?
So I follow a plant-based diet, also known as a vegan diet for some of them. I try to sleep a lot. Like, I'm somebody who likes to sleep 9 hours still. And I do work out as well, although it's been a bit challenging at the start of the lockdown. I think I went into even though I wasn't quite really too stressed out about it, I think subconsciously I was. And so I've stuffed my face with cake and I haven't worked out. And I had all the chocolates and ice creams. And after 6 weeks, I thought, I bought a weighing scale because I had felt that something had changed. And I weighed myself and I thought I really needed to lose weight, which I haven't managed to do, even though I've been working out for the past months. And the result of that is that I am now too fat for the pony I usually ride. So I had to switch pony, which I'm quite sad about. But these were the ramifications of the lockdown.
Okay.
How about you? What do you do for your well-being usually?
Oh, me, wow. I'm I do also like 8 hours sleep. Huge on 8 hours sleep. The irony that both of us have started with sleep at 3:30 a.m. isn't lost on me. Don't worry. Yeah, very, very much value it. Plenty of time with my little boy is what makes me really happy, to be honest. So I always factor in plenty of time with him. So my working week at the moment currently means the whole of Monday is with him, which is, you know, really, really cool. But one of the biggest things that I've found actually is just going off and playing basketball. I take like wireless headphones, take a basketball, go down to my local park and just go and shoot for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is. And I'm terrible, but it's great. It just, in that moment, you're focused on nothing but trying to put the ball through a hoop. And it just takes your mind away from everything. I also quite enjoy things like gaming. I'll sit and I'll play a game or whichever it is, just to sort of switch off from the world. Diet, I've got a long way to go on. It's fair to say. I'm still sugar obsessed. Can't get away from chocolate raisins at any point in the day. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. But I have been trying this intermittent fasting thing, which I know Adam Owen is looking a shadow of his former self on after losing a load of weight on. So I'm trying this, not eating till midday and eating through till 8 p.m. and then stopping at 8 p.m. And that's been going okay. I've not been seeing too much weight loss yet, but it's probably because I've just been eating chocolate raisins. So I think I'm doing it wrong. And Hiren there wearing the greatest shirt in the world. Spurs are not good for your well-being, mate.
Thank you very much, Rohan. Duly noted. I believe we're the only supporters that if you are to sort of tag a heart rate monitor throughout the 90 minutes, you find very sort of ups and downs being the highest, the variance, should we say, of any supporter. So actually talking about the sleep plan, well, sort of Adam and yourselves are covering there, a bit of a fun fact, I think your body can go longer without food than it can without sleep. So it's really drums in the need for sleep, but at the same time, in hindsight, with 3 toddlers, ages 4, 2, and 1, sleep is what is sleep. So it's quite normal to be up sort of every hour on the hour as they decide to sort of let me know of their each and every dream as they go through, the screamers. So it's definitely one of those that I did enjoy before pre-kids, but Lions or weekend Lions were sort of a distant memory at this moment in time, but where you can get it. So thanks for that.
So what about in terms of your well-being here? What are the sort of things that you do to look after yourself?
You know, quality time with family, even more so in sort of lockdown, has been a godsend. Previously, maybe sort of getting out whilst it's dark, returning when it's dark, you may miss quite a lot of the time with the kids. Family may also sort of miss, because it's at that age, every day is something new happens that you either get a photo or video of and you think, oh, I wish I'd seen that, or I wish I'd sort of do that. So I'm more aware of spending quality time with them. So actually, as you sort of pointed out, in terms of a working week, you tend to sort of balance out things that are time sensitive, which need to be doing before others may no longer be there by the time you get to a particular task. So getting that in order, and then sort of making yourself available for possibly sort of school runs, just sort of wake up times, sleep times, etc. So it's a balance, but I believe there is a sort of a fine line as to which and priorities you put towards it as well. So I think it's all down to sort of the happiness levels. Yes, I could probably do more, but I could also sort of miss a lot more.
Very good, very good. And how about yourself, Adam Owen? What do you do to look after yourself?
Well, I've been following Steve Martin's rather excellent plan, so I've been doing the fasting. I've got to say, I did eat the odd Greggs and a couple of cakes along the way in my time, as you might have noticed. Yeah, so Steve's been really helpful, which has been great, and the not eating before 11 for me, and then 7. Although today I did break that, I've got to admit, to 2 thin Warburton's bagels, which is all the wrong things, isn't it? Just around about an hour ago. But I think, given the circumstances, that's probably okay, because it's before 7 o'clock somewhere in the world today, isn't it? Of course, so that I think probably counts. I don't know, but yeah, for me, it's actually most about doing what I just love doing. So yeah, this is why I want to spend 24 hours doing this today, because it's just so much fun. And I think if you are lucky enough in life to find that intersection between enjoyment and doing what you love and actually making that your work, then your well-being sort of is a good deal of the way there. I think we can all still do more, and sleep is definitely on my target list following conference week. But yeah, do something that you love, or make what you do something that you can enjoy. One of the 2 things there.
Well put, nicely put, Adam. And something that I just want to discuss between us all now as well, and I think especially in light of recent events globally and the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that, is actually growing up within the UK as part of an underrepresented group. So Clem, if I may start with you, because obviously you've spent time living in Germany, you've got French background and now living within the UK. How have you found the UK to be growing up, and what has been your experience of it?
So I came to the UK when I was 20, which is 7 years ago now. Christ. I think I found it was quite a different experience in terms of, I think I talk about it in my podcast as well. I think I saw to me, the UK, the first thing that was quite striking is the level of inequality and how visual it is. Compared to where I grew up, because everything's relative, obviously. Because I grew up in Germany, and where there was, I can't really say today if that's true, but there was a really large middle class, and there's no private public school, system. Everyone goes to the same school. So you had parents who were screwing on wheels at the Daimler factory, and you had the banker's kid who were sitting next to each other in class and were best mates, and there was no divide. Rather than when I came to the UK, I clearly saw that there was this sort of more classist system, and I found that weird because even though I am familiar, and obviously every country has inequalities, I thought it was quite striking here, and I think that probably was difficult to deal with and to understand for a while, and that's probably why I was quite politically motivated to advocate for more welfare, because I grew up in a country where there is France and Germany have quite extensive welfare programs, but I think nowadays I'm currently reading a book on that, which is called Utopia for Realists by Rutger Bregman, and I think that really hits the nail on the head in terms of, I think sometimes to solve certain issues we need to think outside the box. So yeah, that's been sort of my experience coming to the UK, but I'm eternally grateful that I'm here, and I think what I really like about being here is people employ you because of the person you are, and they look at the skills second in general, and I think that's that's such a nice thing, which doesn't always happen in other places. And that's really, really nice, because you know you're there because they like you rather than just your diploma, and then having a mumble jumble of people who don't fit together and can't work together. So that's quite nice.
Good. Okay. Wow, super. Really cool. That's really interesting about the schooling system and stuff. Just my pure naivety just assumes that it's the same everywhere, you know, that there'd be private schools in places, and I think that's really, really interesting, the stuff you were saying there about that. Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay. And Hiren, tell us a bit about your background and growing up in the UK.
Sure. Well, not many of you may have known this. I was actually born in India, and probably going to show my age here as well. Lived there until I was sort of age 5, 6 before moving to Kenya, because both my parents are actually from East Africa. So one from Uganda, one from Kenya, and they actually met while studying in India. So that's the reasoning for me being originally there. So lived in Kenya until age 11. So most of my childhood has been overseas, and then coming into the UK at age 11, and sort of living near the airport, Hayes, in Middlesex, which is very close to quite a lot of these sort of communities, or with likes of, say, Southall, with sort of things. So there was some familiarity, but there was definitely a sort of an acknowledgement of differences that as you grew older, as you went to school, sort of noticing the cultural differences, possibly items where maybe you were not so aware of before, and then became aware because the way they pointed out to you, or were actually sort of mocked about, so to speak. So I think it's one of those where you grew up into it. But I do find, well, generally speaking, in terms of sort of diversity, having the various understanding of cultures is quite a key part of that. Not knowing is probably part of the ignorance and understanding. As when you are younger, you tend to find you maybe shy away, or actually don't want to talk about your culture, your background, or so. As you get older, you become more comfortable in your shoes or in your background and your history, so it becomes more relevant. You look up more, you read up more about it, you understand more. And I wouldn't say I had any of the challenges that many of, say, family members or the older generation did when they first came into the UK. They paved a lot of the steps forward to where we are today. And I think you talked about a similar sort of story in one of the morning commutes with regards to your own background, which I'm sure you may sort of bring in as well, Rohan. So generally speaking, it's been positive, but I suppose you care to almost not remember the negatives as much as you would the positives. If you think back, and I'm sure there are ones I've probably forgotten about.
It's really interesting that about that not remembering thing as well, because interesting. So after obviously this has all been recorded a few weeks after the prevalence of the George Floyd situation and things like that. Two of my childhood friends have reached out to me recently, so I've sent me messages within the past 2 weeks, asking after me, but also sort of saying, I'm really sorry if growing up I said anything that ever offended you, and what was I part of the problem, sort of thing. And I thought it was just a really interesting thing that two people, and they're actually two people I never thought would have messaged me about this kind of thing, and we're almost like apologetic in a way, it's kind of strange, and it was because like growing up, like certain, I think, terminology and things that we use between us could be seen as probably racist or whichever, but as I sort of said to them, I think it has moved on a little bit. I was never disadvantaged because of it. I was never prejudiced because of things that they weren't saying things out of prejudice. It was just kind of a bit of to and fro between us and things like that. And I just thought it was really, really interesting that obviously this I think this time round things are starting to change. These two people had gone and looked up and didn't realize the history of things and stuff like that, and has started to talk about it. And that's when people start talking about it and it becomes commonplace, is when I think things start to really get dealt with. Just on from what you said there as well, Hiren, it is really important to remember that we've come an awful long way. It isn't just full of like negativity of the world being awful or whichever. We have come a huge way. So my dad is Sri Lankan and my mum's English, and he arrived in this country on a boat when he was aged 8. It took him 2.5 weeks to get here on a boat. As he will tell you, he didn't paddle himself. There were other people driving, sailing said boat or whichever. But he arrived with just his mum, his dad working back in Sri Lanka. His dad soon passed away afterwards. But she had 9 kids, and they were in like a 2-bed house. All this, like, you know, he grew up having 3 jobs, supporting the family. He gave up a quite successful cricket career because he had to just get more and more jobs to support the family. And he met my mum, who was white, English, and their relationship was in secret for 7 years because he wasn't supposed to date anyone of different religion or whichever. It tells me all these stories about how he'd like walk into a pub and he'd be punched in the face before he got to the bar because he'd be walking in with a white woman, things like this. And like, these are the kind of things that I don't have to deal with now, and we don't have to deal with now. So it is important to understand that we have come an awful long way, but we do still have a way to go. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know about either of you guys. Something that I realized probably in my late teens was the pressure of growing up as a minority. So I lived in a like predominantly white town in Yorkshire in England, and that's where I grew up for the majority of my life. And there were 2 families of colour in the whole town of 20,000 people. So everybody knew who we were. And for that reason, I've got 3 younger brothers as well. And I never realised until my late teens the pressure that brings, in terms of, I always felt like I had to behave. And I always felt like my brothers had to behave, because otherwise people would tarnish us all with that brush and go, oh, well, they're like that. And that might be my own thing that's in my own head, but it's actually still something I carry around with me to this day, because I still live in an area a bit further up now, which is predominantly white again, with a real lack of diversity here. And it's something I always carry around with me, is that I feel like I'm representing a whole culture. And again, maybe it's something that's in my own head, but I don't know, there's always that feeling, there's always that slight sense of anxiety about it. I don't know if either of you guys have ever felt that at all growing up.
I think my mom would definitely, not in the same way obviously, but my mom was always like, you know, behave and be like this and be like that, because what will people think of you? And I think that's been the overarching message always, what will people think of you? And that's, yeah, and that, so I probably grew up with that until a while where I was like, actually, I can just be myself and people will like me. I don't need to just pretend. But yeah, I can understand how there's this pressure of, you know, what will the teachers think of you? And I think because my mom was, she was, well, even though we don't have couldn't see that we were foreigners, you could hear that my mom was a foreigner in Germany because she had a French accent, obviously, and she wanted to make sure that I wasn't disadvantaged because of that. Because people might think, oh, she's just, you know, migrant and she just, you know, whatever. Even though ethnicity had nothing to play in. So that's something I can relate to somewhat.
Just building on that, actually, Rohan, sort of talking about experiences and how that shapes sort of your behavior and actually ingress. Now, I do have sort of family members or extended family members who've experienced sort of the worst of that, if you want to call it racism or so, and it's shaped their mode of thinking. They're the older generation, so it's some, depending on whether it's been passed down those experiences to their children's beliefs, but then they know different because they're growing up in a different world, and they're actually sort of almost trying to sort of bring back to them to say, well, it's not the same anymore. So the viewpoints or any sort of thoughts or so that they may have had does need to change, but it's clearly looking at where we are today and where they were. So they're only clearly going by their own experiences and have sort of created those biases, they created those challenges within themselves for that. But as you say, we've come a long way, and we're not there yet.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you both for sharing. God, time's flown there. I didn't realise how far we've just got through that discussion. That was amazing, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for both of your contributions there. God, I can't get my words out. It's early, isn't it? Right. So closing notes. So on the next show, we are focusing on our charity challenges. So Gretchen is back to show us what she has been doing with her crafting challenge, and Clem is going to show us what the Minecrafting team have created. That's very exciting. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you at 4:30.